Hello and welcome to episode 22 of the OSU Mapcast. I'm Cinnabun and I'm in this episode I'm with OSU Dev and GMT Ephemeral. Please introduce yourself.
Hi, I'm Ephemeral. I've been with OS since 2009. I started off as a member of the Beatmap Appreciation Team? Assessment Team? I forget. It's one of the two.
Pretty sure it's appreciation.
I think it was Appreciation, something like that.
Yeah.
I kind of rose to prominence, I guess, because I helped found the MAT at the time. And I ended up developing a couple of miscellaneous features for the game and a whole bunch of other stuff, and then about 5 years ago I got hired full-time to start helping out with things, so yeah.
Hey, congratulations.
Yeah.
Alright, and so like where are you from and other stuff like that? A
Uh,
little bit more about yourself.
yeah, I've born in Australia, raised in Australia, everything in Australia really. Went to university for psychology, ended up never using any of it, because I ended up getting hired at
Fair
OS
enough.
instead. It was kind of funny.
I see.
Come out of a psychology degree, go straight into dealing with circles and stuff like that.
The psychology of
The
circles.
psychology of circles, yeah. We can call it that. Makes me sound better.
Of course.
I don't know. What else is there that you want to know?
I mean, that works out. And so before we get into like start question about it, I was like, what are some things then you do outside of OSU?
Oh, I'm a huge MMO fan. Like, when I'm not doing OS-related stuff, I'm pretty much playing an MMO of some kind, or
Oh, really? What kind?
trying to... All of them.
Like which ones?
Literally all of them.
All of them.
I have played, I think, every single one that has been released. Well, in the West, anyway.
Dang. So which ones are like your favorites? Or like you mostly play?
I would say probably Final Fantasy XIV is my favorite, but it's had a bit of a content drought lately, so I've been expanding my horizons rather unsuccessfully. Anyone who plays a lot of MMOs
I
knows how
see.
it goes. You pretty much never find one that ticks all the boxes.
Not right. There's always just like, well, this one's great, but it's missing this.
It's missing this, or you finish everything, you hit endgame, and you're like, well, what do I do now?
Exactly. Then you start another one.
Yep. That's me, to a T.
All right. All right. So right now, so how did you first find out about OSU and like start working into that?
How did I first start? How did I first find out about those? I remember. I was browsing Facebook way back when,
Oh.
and I had a friend called Rask who lived in Hawaii, and I used to play World of Warcraft with him and a guy called Roderick. And
Okay.
we were like a big trio. Like, we did pretty much everything together at the time. So I saw him post something about OS, and I'm like, oh, this is kind of interesting, because I thought I was good at rhythm games because I think a friend had lended me like Guitar Hero or something in the past, and I'm like, oh, I can finish the hard stages. I must be top dick at rhythm games, yeah? Nah.
Right.
I started playing OS, and I'm like, oh my god, this is really, really hard. And I kind of like sank into the chat a little bit, and it all just kind of snowballed from there, I guess.
I see. Did you like play the other rhythm games like Mania if you play Guitar Hero?
No, not really. Because I thought I was, you know how like when you first start playing rhythm games, you think you're kind of good at them, and then
Right.
you hit that wall
Then it
where you
knocks you
realize,
down.
holy shit, I'm nothing. Like, you see people like pulling off stuff that you don't even think is possible. I hit that wall with,
Can't even comprehend it.
yeah, it's the Cookie Z effect essentially. I suppose the Marami effect these days. God damn.
No, remind me did a line of cocaine and started setting scores.
You know, honestly, I would not be surprised if cocaine was involved, because those scores are absolutely mental. I don't even know what to say. They're just so extraordinary.
At this point, I just see I'm like, I'm just speechless. I'm like, okay, well, there's no point in playing. I'll never get to that point.
Yeah, pretty much. It's like, oh, he's done it again.
Wow, you DT'd something that wasn't supposed to be DTable. Okay.
It's just insanity.
But yeah, so then from moving like getting into the game and stuff like that, how did you start like working for the OSU team itself?
Well, that one's a long story, kind of.
We have time.
That we do. Well, as I mentioned in the intro, the scuffed intro, that I started helping out with the MAT, and a lot of that was essentially political crap at the time, which was people thinking that we didn't need an intermediary team or that something else was happening, and a lot of early OS stuff is basically just one giant whirlwind, I guess, of just people and opinions, and very strong people with very strong opinions coming in, and
Right.
essentially a lot of what I did in the early days was managing that, and essentially being a very strong person with very strong opinions, and making sure that
Of course.
they were rising to the fore and stuff. So it kind of developed from there, and eventually I ended up getting some of the support of Orp at the time. Orp and Sinistro kind of threw their weight behind me a little bit, and that was really when it all started. Peppy kind of took notice at that point, because Peppy had been doing things with Orp for a long time, and Sinistro had this reputation in the community as being like someone who pretty much never got things wrong. It was a well-earned reputation, by the way, really, really well-earned. Like, I doubt many people know these names that I'm dropping anymore, but they were really big names back in the day. So, yeah, the match started, and then I led that for a while, and it kind of just snowballed from there, and things were rocky, let's put it gently. To give
In what way?
To give a little bit of context, when I started the MAT, like, you think these days you see stuff like beatmap nominators, and they have the qualified button and these really elaborate systems that are supported with code, right? Like, there's buttons to press and things to press. When the MAT started, I got a sub forum, and that was it. And the sub forum wasn't visible to the public; it was only visible to the MAT and the BAT. And the MAT essentially had to put what we called proto bubbles or pubbles. And then the BAT would check bubbled maps to bubble them, and then other BATs would check bubbled maps to rank the bubbled maps.
So just like a whole process.
Yeah, and if it sounds kind of convoluted and janky, it's because it was, and it didn't work very well for a really long time. So I kind of, at that point, about 3/4 of the way through the map's lifespan, I kind of slid into administrative stuff. I was helping out behind the scenes at that point a little bit, like not being paid for it, but I was helping out with like other projects and things like that. But
Okay.
that all kind of kept developing. I kept helping out. I think at one point I was actually I had access to the source code for OS, and I was developing little bits and bobs for it. I implemented a kind of a live mapping function for Tycho, which I don't think very many people use, but it basically meant you could span your keyboard in the editor to make Tycho maps. I don't know if anyone actually uses it, but it was a really kind of hastily realized feature, and no one really used that. But at the time, we had this really, really shitty dialogue for IRC, like joining channels in game, and it was terrible. And I thought, I'm going to try and fix that, and I did. And then
clean that up.
Yeah, I did. And then Metal Mario cleaned up my version of it, and what's in the client today is kind of like a mixture of the two. So
That's cool.
yeah, I'm so sorry. There's so much history. Like I'm trying to piece together
Go for it.
the particular story. Like, I think at that point I was just starting university, like when all the MAT stuff happened. It was like my first year, or I was still in high school actually. I think I might have still been in high school at the time. Anyway,
This was around like 2009.
2000. Actually,
10.
give me a second. I know I'm so prepared for this. I know, but we're working on a timeline article for the wiki at the moment, and so I've been going through a lot of this stuff, and I actually have dates for these things now. So when was it? It was 2009. So I was 100% still in high school. So I graduated high school in like 2010. So all that was happening, and I was leading the MAT up until about the end of 2010. And at that point, I'd already started university, I think. Or I was about to, the year after that. And during my early time at university, I was doing a lot of background administrative stuff. And it kind of just kept developing from there as things grew, and the community was growing massively at this point. So a lot of the stuff I was doing was basically busy work, like just not really name change stuff, but like, oh god, how do I describe?
Like the more tedious things.
Yeah, it's kind of like intern stuff. I suppose I could describe a lot of what I do in OS intern stuff. Really, I'm kind of just like a paid intern at times when I'm not doing community related stuff. It's like handling things at the back end. It's not very glamorous work.
I imagine.
But yeah, that progressed for about 3 years of that, all throughout a whole bunch of changes, and I kind of withdrew from the community a little bit midway through because university, and I was quite struggling with university actually for a variety of reasons. But as I got towards the end of it, Peppy kind of just slid into my DMs and was like, yeah, you're gonna graduate soon, right? And I'm like, yeah, I'm gonna graduate. And so he's like, how about you work for me then, instead of ending up in some entry-level job or whatever? And I'm like, holy shit, you want me to work for you? Like you're gonna pay me with money? Is this a thing?
With money?
With real money? And he's like, yeah, I'll pay you with money. And then we discussed things, and for entry level, like, oh my god, I don't get paid a lot, I don't think, but for me, like, that is my first job. Just being able to continue doing what I was doing and knowing that I kind of didn't have to learn a whole new thing like you do when you go into a new job. It was a huge deal. It was a huge deal.
That's
for me.
super cool.
Yeah, it was cool, but there was also this side to it of I didn't want the money from the job to profane the act of volunteering, if that makes sense. It's very hard for me to describe, but
You want to explain that?
I have this opinion that whenever pardon me, whenever money is introduced into things like volunteer work or things you do for fun or for passion, it tends to reduce them a little bit. Like, it makes them less than what they were. And I hold that across all spectrum of things. Like, if you have an artist that's drawing pictures that they want to draw because they like those pictures,
Okay.
and that to me is the purest form of creative expression. It's just done purely for the act of creation. But then you have people who take like commissions and stuff, and I don't think that's a bad thing, but I think when you're taking commissions, you're inherently doing something that you don't want to do, but you'll do it because you're getting paid to do it. You'll draw someone else's stuff. Like, does that make sense?
Yeah, I get that.
Yeah, so I was kind of applying that to. I was doing all this grunt work and all this people wrangling and yelling and political bollocks and.
Because you wanted to.
Yeah, I was doing it because I wanted to and because I cared. Because
Of course.
it was a real important thing to me at the time, and I kind of had to sit there for a bit and think, like, man, was the money worth profaning this? And to this day, I'm still not sure it is. Like, I don't have any, I suppose, qualms about joining the team or anything, but I'd probably still be here even if I wasn't being paid, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think I would have dipped or anything, but I still struggle with that sometimes because I wonder if maybe I'd be a little bit more engaged if I hadn't taken the money. Like, I always have that in the back of my mind a little bit. It's also,
I never really thought about it like that.
yeah, it's kind of like people say the dream is getting to do your hobby as a job, right?
Right.
Yeah, everyone kind of says that. It's like, oh, it's the dream, but I'm not so sure it is, because I've kind of had that happen to me, and yeah, I don't know. I had dreams of becoming a writer for a while, and I write like heaps. I do all sorts of writing stuff, like just articles, all sorts of shit.
Oh, that's cool.
And I kind of look at that now after seeing what my experience with OS has been, and it's kind of like, I'm not sure I want to do that for a job anymore. Like, I think I just want to keep it as a hobby.
You just keep doing it because you enjoy it.
Yeah. So, sorry, kind of diverged off top there, but
No, you're fine.
But yeah, no, I get asked about BMAP commissions a lot, and that's like my big major reason for being against it, because I really don't want people to feel like,
They have to map for...
Oh, someone else is like say like someone like Monstrata or Sotax or whoever takes commissions these days, and they're just like, I'm less of a mapper if I'm not taking commissions or if I'm not getting paid for it. And it's just like, man, I don't know. It's like the complete opposite to me. It's like you're less of a mapper if you are getting paid to do it, in my eyes. But
Right.
yeah.
I understand that. That's actually really cool, like, to put into like that kind of words. I didn't really think about most of it that way.
That's just how I think about it anyway. I'm sure a whole bunch of people feel very differently about it.
But that's all right.
Yep.
And so, like, you talked about like a little bit like what you've done, but like with being a dev in the game for so long, you worked on like many projects and updates and all that. That I'm sure you couldn't talk about like all of them. But what are some like the biggest things you've involved and like worked on?
Oh, the biggest thing, bar none, would be the featured artist project. Like, that is I think, if I ever have a legacy to leave in the game, it would be the early involvement in that, because we'd been talking about it since let me check this timeline. I think Luigi Han mentioned what essentially is the featured artist program. He mentioned it back in 2009, and I started working on it, I think, in 2014 or 2015. So
Okay.
we'd been kicking the idea around the park for a long time, and it just hadn't really happened for a whole bunch of reasons. Like, you get distracted with things like Peppy was wanting to do it himself. Like, he wants to do everything himself. I think he only ruefully brings people into the team because he's like, he knows he's human and he has limits. He would vastly prefer to
No,
do
of course.
everything himself. And you kind of like get used to that working in the team. He doesn't mean it in a bad way. It's just, it's his baby, Like,
No, exactly.
you don't want someone else raising your
He
kid.
wants involved like in every part of it.
Yeah, yeah. And if he could, he would 100% do it. He would just, he'd have his fingers in everything. And he still tries to some extent. But, veering back to the featured artist thing, is getting that off the ground and being able to see it like really get traction recently. I'd say it's by far the biggest thing, because
Yeah, the featured artist has just been blowing up, and it's like super cool seeing a new artist every week.
yeah, that's mostly Pishy Fat doing that. The amount of work he does on outreach. My job these days more or less is I just kind of assemble the listings together and write biographies and stuff, and Pishy Fat does the outreach and the timing, and he's just been absolutely killing it in these past couple of months. Like, I think we have a backlog of
I think Pishy told me with like 6 months.
yeah, something like that. Let me check. Actually, I can actually.
Something crazy.
It's insane. We have so many. Like, yeah, we've got something like, yeah, we've got basically the rest of the year in projected releases, and then another 30 people being spoken to at the moment. So
That's so cool.
so another potential 30 artists or more, because sometimes we're talking to labels, if you can get labels involved, then you can have multiple people from a single label acquisition, which is kind of big.
Oh, right.
Yeah.
That's cool. And do you want to talk about like a bit more about like how the actual featured artist program started?
It was more or less Peppy saying like, oh, I want to start paying artists, because he's very well aware that the whole situation surrounding like the things and stuff, and
DMCAs.
yeah, he's not huge on essentially coasting by without giving artists their due, because he views it all, and we all view it all as a team, that the artist is just as important as like the mapper, basically,
No, of
in
course.
creating stuff, and it's their music, and we want to give back to that. So that's where pretty much all the OS supporter money has been going over the past couple of years, is just into licensing. And that has a double effect of also kind of like securing the longevity of the game, because we go with perpetuity licenses, which means that we own the usage rights. Well, in most cases, in like 98% of all the cases for featured artists, we have perpetuity license, so we own the usage rights for that content pretty much forever. So
Okay.
no matter what happens, like, there'll always be a big collection of artists with maps available from like the Mappers Guild and all the stuff that people have done historically. All of that will be available for them in the future, and that's the big thing to me, is securing the future for OS like that, and also bringing artists in and making artists realize that we're not here to just make a cheap buck out of their work.
Right.
That we want to help showcase their work and have people enjoy it, and basically break the mold of what I'm sure they're used to, because like, I don't know if you have, or if you've spoken to many people with like background. I think actually you've spoken to Dictate, right? Or is that someone else?
I don't think I have.
No, I think 2127 spoke to Dictate about it. Yeah, but Dictate's a good dude. You should bring it on here sometime.
Hey, I'll keep that in mind.
Yeah, and if you speak to producers, they basically get fucked over at like every possible angle. Like when they're trying to get their stuff, get their work out there. Sometimes,
Really?
yeah, it really sucks for them, honestly. Like, some labels are great and others are not so great, and it's kind of just like sometimes you get caught up in like, sometimes you'll have an artist that has like work on like 10 different labels because they've just been searching constantly for a label that works for them and all sorts of stuff. It's really rough for them. So being able to go to an artist like let's take a recent release like Street, for example. Like, we go to Street and say, hey, we love your work, can we use it in our game? And Street's like, hell yeah, brother. And then, we pay him like a quite a respectable sum for his work, and then it's kind of just like he sees that he has this audience now that loves his work, and there's no strings attached to it, and it's great because he can use his work wherever the hell he wants, because we're not using like exclusivity rights or anything, and he gets to see
Right.
people take up his work and make cool shit with it, and I think that's the biggest reward you can get as an artist, honestly.
It's like just people being interested in
Yeah,
your
like,
songs and to be able to create stuff with it.
yeah, like engaging with it. And you see people that take like featured artist tracks and make like these amazing creations, like that map for Mr. Invisible and all sorts of other stuff. You just see people take your
Right.
work and they run with it, and it's amazing. Like I'd be super chuffed in his shoes or in any artist's shoes to have that happen to my stuff.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And also just like putting out your name in front of way more people.
Yeah, yeah.
There's a couple of artists that I would not have like even cared to look for or anything if they weren't a featured artist. I didn't see them like some of their songs and maps and stuff like that. I'm like, oh, I actually like that artist.
Yeah, no, me too, dude. So I've been introduced to so many through this program. That's also a huge thing that I love about it. My music horizons have broadened so much since I started doing this. It's kind of crazy.
No, yeah. When I started OSU, before I started OSU, I only listened to like EDM and that was it. Anything else I hated. But then I playing OSU, just like, my music tastes have just expanded. It's super cool.
Yeah, that's the best bit. I think OS does that for a lot of people because like the whole act of playing it versus just listening to it is a big
It's
deal.
more engaging.
Yeah,
definitely.
it's so much more engaging. Like there's some things I'd never listen to, but I'll listen to them if they're in OS maps. But
Which featured artist is your favorite?
oh man, you can't do that to me. What the? What am I supposed to say to that? Oh, there's so many of them. Let me bring up the thing.
Sure.
I have one. I'm a huge Culprate nerd. Like,
Oh.
yeah, I kind of forced Culprate through the doors a little bit because I don't know. I love this stuff. I was actually introduced to his work through someone mapped, Yin, I think it was. Yeah, someone mapped Yin, and it was like it's this really janky tech map that's like kind of almost impossible to play if you're not like super good. And I'm not super good. I'm like the 6-digit dude, so I'm not taking any awards home anytime soon for my play. But I heard it and I'm like, I didn't know you could do this with music. And I'm like, dude, we got to get this guy in. And I kind of sat down, and then Dictate happened, and Dictate had worked with Culprate in the past and on the Unity project, and I'm just like, oh my god, wait, could you put us in touch with Culprate's manager? And Dictate's like, hell yeah, dude. And then that's how we got Culprate
that's
going.
so cool.
Yeah. Oh, it was so exciting, dude. I was like, I was so hyped for all that. But yeah, Culprate's
Dang, that's super cool.
one of my favorites for sure. But oh my god, I don't know. Kira is another one of my favorites. I don't think people know very much or map much Kira, but Kira's like, I think 12 years younger than me or something. Like they were in high school when we contacted them at the time. Like they were really young, and they put out shit, and it's like pop level stuff that you'd expect to hear on like charts, like top 10 charts and stuff.
Like the radio and all that.
Yeah, they're nuts. I don't. It blows my fucking mind. Honestly, I thought they were like
that's
in their
crazy.
20s or their 30s or something, and then we signed the contract, and I couldn't. I still can't believe it. So much talent.
That's just talent right
Yeah,
there.
it's
No, yeah.
pure fucking talent. It's like just
Damn.
raw talent. It's so surprising. Kira's one of my favorites. Who else? I've got so many favorites. Mega Neko, I was really big on Mega Neko too. I've listened to heaps of his stuff. Heaps of it.
Oh, I am a fan, yeah.
Yeah, I love his stuff. Any of that kind of old Newground sound, and Mega Neko does it so well. Temanite as well. Wisp X was another one of my favorites. I heard Wisp X on Waifu Wednesdays once, and I'm like, we got to get this.
Waifu Wednesdays, heck yeah.
Yeah, dude, I still listen to that. I think Eventide
Same.
featured on it, and I'm like, holy shit, this is a banger, dude. Let's get this in. And contacted them, and it was just, they were so down for it. It was great.
Just so many.
Yeah.
I'm recently beginning to Frooms.
Yeah, Frooms is great
And
too.
oh, their songs are super interesting. It's like, it's not even like music at that point. It's just a experience.
Yeah, that's an excellent way of putting it. Some of them are experiences more than they are like traditional music.
Right.
And getting to open that up for people is a great thing, I think, because some people, they think it's like me and thinking I knew rhythm games, and I didn't. I had no fucking clue. Some people are like that with music. They have a very narrow experience of what it is, and they either don't want to, or they haven't had the experience to be exposed to stuff beyond that. So
Right.
things like the Featured Artist Project are just amazing for getting people to break out of their shell a little bit.
And that's what it's all about.
Yep.
I remember I asked this to Pishy when we had an episode with him, but do you have any hints for the next featured artist that you can give?
Well, I write all the hints every week, but this next one, Actually, when do you get these out? It may not be valid.
It should be out on Thursday. This Thursday.
Okay, so the next one won't make much sense. Maybe I can give you one for the.
I'll take it.
So let me look up some magic real quick.
All right.
I think. Okay, this will do. I'll give you a bit of a hint for this one. It'll be an experience you reflect on.
Okay.
Yeah, that's the hint.
That could mean anything.
It could mean anything. It could.
Tracking Force win.
Oh, dude, we're talking to them at the moment. I think I've said this before.
I heard that you guys were.
We were, yeah.
Did you approach them or did they approach you? I know the guitarist Herman Lee is like a big fan of us too.
Yeah, Herman Lee, I think, mentioned that we should get in touch, and we have gotten in touch. But this is one of the Dragonfall situation. I probably shouldn't speak too much about this because it's like, it's stuff in progress. But sometimes what the artists want and what the labels want are two different things.
Oh, right.
Right, yeah, and when you encounter this a lot with the big bands signed on the big labels, but sometimes working out the particular details with labels regarding usage and stuff, because music licensing is a hell of a deal. I think Tom Scott has done a really good video on this. Yeah, Tom Scott has done a YouTube video on the whole music licensing or copyright licensing stuff in here, and it basically goes over what the system is and how it's kind of busted and not really that great. But yeah, we have to contend with that a lot of times. And Dragon Force is one of those situations where I'm like 100% certain that they want to do stuff with us, and we 100% want to do stuff with them. But working out the particular details of their labels, or just sometimes keeping in touch with people, because we get ghosted a lot. Like sometimes people just won't respond, or especially lately with COVID causing a whole bunch of disruption and stuff. Like it's very easy to lose email chains. It's just a thing that happens in business. It's not a particularly targeted thing, but yeah, we're doing our best with Dragon Force because we want to see them come in too. It'd be great.
That'd be super cool.
Yeah.
Alright, so I guess moving on then from the feature artist, because that was super interesting to talk about. But so in what ways has the game itself progressed since it started, like when you started playing?
Oh my god, man, so much. I could probably spend like 2 or 3 hours talking about it. It's come so far. I don't think people really fully grasp the scope of just how far things have come. Is you see it a lot. Like, I'll stick with the modding and ranking systems for now because it's the most relatable example that a lot of people have, I think. But you see a lot of people talking today about how ranked maps are kind of like, they're just ranked maps. There's no real quality to them or anything. There's a lot of people making very vocal pushes to have ranked be like all quality assured, I guess. And we used to have that, and it didn't work. It just didn't work.
Right.
Because we essentially had people come into the team, and they meant well. All of these people involved in all of these systems, they all meant the best, but it was essentially trying to curate like a massively varied creative base with just like a handful of people that only had a couple of creative perspectives involved, and it just wasn't working because they would view things that were shit to them, or not worth their time, or not ready for rank. They would look at stuff that was maybe a bit ahead of its time in terms of like expression with like mapping techniques and flow and all sorts of things like that. They would look at that and think, oh no, this isn't up to the standards of today, and they would block it from happening. And we have like definitive dips in the numbers for when this quality control stuff all came in. It basically like cut the number of mappers making new stuff in half, and like cut the number of new maps coming into the game by like 2/3. It was really not great. Like sometimes we'd go for like a week or two without having a map ranked, and now I think nowadays we have like 3 or 4 maps ranked a day. So we've come a huge way on that front, and I really wish. I'm hoping that this timeline article that we're writing with the wiki team will help display to people like the kind of changes we've made in that regard and how far we've come in letting people essentially choose for themselves what they map instead of having to map to our very rigid creative expectations of what a good map should be.
No, exactly.
Yeah. And I could totally respect that people feel like that they see stuff in ranked and they're like, this shouldn't be ranked, it's just bad. Like, I hold opinions like that too. Some things, like, I'm not hugely fond of tech maps, for example, because I can't play them very well, and I think they're a little bit overmapped.
Same.
Yeah, I love that. I love looking at them in the editor, but playing them just feels like complete shit to me a lot of the time. Some mappers get around that, like Mir. I can play Mir maps fine because Mir knows what he's doing. But
Yeah, I understand that.
yeah, but at the same time, it's like I don't want to sit here and think, oh, maybe we should only let Mir maps through because like my experience is that only his really work. Like I'd like people to have the opportunity to prove other people wrong about what techniques are good and what techniques are bad. And we didn't have that until relatively recently, actually. It was only like 2 or 3 years ago when things started to really improve for the better. So it was like 80% of OS's lifespan, and we were like this really restrictive kind of like up in your face telling you what you can and can't do in terms of mapping. And since a lot of the people involved with the scene are like modders more than mappers, because we haven't really had very many BAT or QAT or NAT that are more or less like super good at mapping. I think Pishyfat is like one of maybe a handful of people that have mastered like all three domains, because he maps great. Like it's just pretty much fact.
Shout out to Pishy.
Yeah, dude, Pishy does so much, man. I could talk for a whole segment on how much he does. Like, and he just sits there in the background and takes like no credit for any of it. It's like, bro, he does so much, man.
He's such a great guy.
Yeah, really. Like,
Pishy Fat segment right now.
Pishy Fat segment, yeah, dude. I wish there was more people like him that just did stuff. That just came in and like sat down and like really focused hard on a couple of things. And I'm sure there are, honestly. Like, I kind of make it out like there's not, but I'm sure that there is. We just haven't really been exposed to them enough yet.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just anywhere.
Yeah, exactly. But
it just takes time.
To get back to the whole progress thing, it's progressed in a huge number of ways. That the modding system example that I just went through is one of them. Another one is that the community is really broadened now. Like, it used to pretty much just be concentrated almost entirely on the forums and like an in-game chat, and now it's like the forums, in-game chat, Discord, Twitter, and like a million other different, like Reddit too. I should always, like, Reddit's a big deal nowadays. It wasn't always. It was kind of just a niche thing. But it's big now, and it's kind of progressed to a point where we, as like the OS team, can only really influence it in a number of ways. Like, we don't have the control that we used to have, and that's kind of just part and parcel of growing up as a game community and getting as big as we've gotten. And we kind of just have to. Of course. Yeah. It sucks in some ways, but it's also kind of cool. It's like seeing your kid grow up.
You become independent.
Yeah, they're independent, and like sometimes we really wish we could change things. Like, there's a lot of like not great behavior in the OS community that we wish we could fix, but it's also just too big now for us to really exercise the kind of community oversight that we used to have, where everyone was on the forums and everyone was in in-game chat and stuff like that. That's a big thing, I think, because a lot of people only really have their experiences with OS and its current social ecosystem, with it being as spread out as it was. And it never used to be like that. It was kind of like a small town kind of feeling. Now it's just like a big city instead.
Yeah, like everyone knows everyone.
Yeah, like I knew everyone back in 2009. Everyone that was on like 3 or 4 times a week, you pretty much knew. Like, everyone knew each other, and I know maybe like 100 or so people now that I keep in regular contact with, or maybe like 110, 120 people out of a game that's got like 23 million people playing it. It's not a lot.
It is an insane amount, though, of the amount of people we have playing now.
Yeah, so many. I don't think people can comprehend it. Actual
feels like it had like a completely different vibe from like 2010, 9.
Yeah, I think in some ways it's also made it a lot harder to get into as well, because it's so big now. It's easy to get kind of lost in the crowd. You hear it a lot with new mappers as well. They kind of go, oh, I can't get my work scene to know it. Like, BNs won't check my map.
Alright.
Modders won't check my map. I post map requests, and it's kind of just like they're sitting out there on the fringe of the community, and they're not really engaged with it because it's hard to now. It's hard to get involved in that, and I know some people are not particularly great at social things, so they kind of just see that the system, they see these very basic systems that we have to kind of like encourage people to check other people's work and stuff, and they're just like, it's not happening. But it happens if you put like the effort in to make it happen. And some people say that it shouldn't be that way, and they're kind of right. It kind of shouldn't be. We probably should have systems that help it so new mappers can get their work seen too. But at the same time, there's a whole bunch of issues that come along with that. And yeah, I think that's our next real step in terms of like evolving as a community, is making sure that the people that are currently left behind aren't left behind anymore. That's a big interest of mine personally as well.
I see. So yeah, and so I guess like what changes for that? Are there, and like talking about that more, do you want? Is there anything like you want to see changed or happen in the game?
Oh man.
Both like counting what you just mentioned.
Yeah, like what I just mentioned for sure. I want to see that change. I want to see it be a lot easier for new people to get taken in. We have stuff like the community mentorship project that's really, really good in that regard. It brings a lot of people in, but I'm not sure how many people still know about that, even though we have a front page feature for it and we tweet about it. It's still a pretty big project, but it could be bigger. I would like to see it be much bigger. And the dudes that run it are great. It's not their problem. I think it just needs more exposure in organic ways that make sense instead of just kind of like throwing out, hey, this is here, and expecting people to come look at it. Yeah.
Right.
That's one thing. Another thing I think I'd like to see is that we've had Kodosu for like 10 years and it's pretty much never meant anything for like 7 of those 10 years. So you have mappers that have like this incredible catalog of contribution that they've built up over the years, and it doesn't mean anything. It's just a number. And that kind of really sucks to me because like they've put so much work into help and they're not getting anything out of it aside from like the natural satisfaction that comes with doing that kind of stuff, which is great on its own, don't get me wrong, but I'd love to be able to give them more rewards for that kind of stuff.
And have like also like a greater incentive to keep going.
Yeah. For some people, it is the big incentive for them. Even just the act of raising the number is enough. But I'd like to pay it forward. You know, like we really should be doing something with Kodosu. I just don't know what. It's a really difficult thing to try and think of ways to spend it without making it so that people try to farm it to spend it.
Right.
Because they would.
Yeah, I would just create a whole other problem.
Yeah, exactly. Like I think some people have brought up use it to make maps loved. Like you spend like 100 Kodosu and it loves your map and stuff. But then that kind of like diminishes the whole validity of Project Love as a category and all the efforts.
Didn't it used to be like that?
It did. At the start, it was like that, and we had exactly that problem where it was just kind of like people were paying Kodosu to get shit into Love that no one really liked. And they were like, we don't love this thing. Why the hell is it called Love? Which, like, I'd put on a voice for that, but it's a perfectly valid criticism.
Right.
It happened a lot, and in the end, we had to can it. And that's where Toy came in, and Toy came and started the whole Project Love Captain thing and turned it into all it is today. So Toy and Clayton now kind of keep that going. Mostly Clayton. I think Toy's busy with other stuff. But,
hey, Clayton and Toy are both great guys.
Yeah, Clayton. Clayton's another one. Clayton's like another pishy fat. Clayton does like a billion things and no one ever sees it. He does so much work.
No, Clayton's super cool. Shout out to Clayton.
Yeah, big shout out, dude. Big shout out, Wiki friend.
Alright, and so like moving on then a little bit more. How often do you like yourself go in and play, like download new maps and stuff, as opposed to like just like working on dev stuff and all that?
I think I pulled some stats on this when I was writing up these answers for these interview questions. I think I've checked in about 3 times a month for the past 6 years or so, more like sometimes more. I had a brief stint a couple of years ago where I streamed myself trying to pull myself out of the 6-digit hell. I think I called them the horse streams or something. I don't know. I've forgotten. It's been a long time. It was like called Getting Back on Horse. Go? It was pretty good. I had like 50 or 60 people watching me do it at one point, which is like, why would you watch a 6-digit farm like Haramachi Clover for like it's like 10 hours? What the hell's wrong with people? Why would you watch that? I wouldn't watch that, but people were there and they were encouraging me.
They want to see you grow.
Yeah, it was kind of cool. I stopped after I got out, and now I've like decayed again, so I need to go do it again. But I just can't muster the effort to
start them up again.
Yeah, I just don't like how much it's become about farming now. Like, so I also don't like that the current system that we have for PP doesn't reward people for like trying and sort of barely scraping passes on really hard stuff. Like, it bothers me a little bit that like you spend maybe like 2 hours like trying to SS a Haramachi Clover or Granite play for like 200 or 300 PP or whatever. I'd much rather be spending 2 to 3 hours trying to desperately pass something that's really fucking hard instead. Right. Like, that's way more fun to me. And I wish our system kind of like acknowledged that those shitty high grade scores are like indicative of something. But I know it's really hard to do that mathematically anyway. But yeah, that's why I don't play that much, because it's just between work and everything else, it's kind of like I kind of feel obligated to try and grind up ranks a bit, but I don't really want to, so I kind of just pop in when I see something cool and play it.
Yeah, it makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
Just checking in.
Yeah.
And so with again like being on the team and all that, who have been like some of your favorite people to work with on the OSU staff?
Hands down, Peppy. I have such a
Hey.
colored history with Peppy. It's funny. Do you know the first time he ever said anything to me was "fuck off Ephemeral" because I was being a bit antsy in OS public chat when he was still moderating it, and our
Okay.
first interaction was him silencing me for like an hour because I was being a bit of a dick to people. And I remember that to this day because then like 2 days later, I was talking again in the public chat at the time with like the OS channel chat at the time, and I was mentioning how I like Ragnarok Online and stuff. And he's like, oh yeah, I like
Okay.
Ragnarok Online too. And I was just like, oh, that's cool. And I'm like, I fucking love the music. And he's like, oh hell yeah, me too. Hey, I've got all this fucking music from a guy called Lix that's like Ragnarok Online themes. You want to listen to it? And so he dumped me like 3 gigabytes of like Ragnarok Online remix music on his file sharing service. And I'm like, whoa, dude, like I just kind of spammed in your chat and you did give a fuck. And he's like, nope, just don't do it again.
Oh, that's so cool.
And I'm like, oh, okay. And that's kind of like when I started getting interested because like it's rare to see people kind of separate that kind of shit in communities, especially
Right.
small ones. Like the smaller the community, it tends to be like the more stacked, I guess. Like the devs tend to be on it. They tend to be kind of like up themselves a little bit.
Mhm.
And I never got that impression for Peppy, and it made me very inclined to spend more time working on his stuff because I didn't feel like he'd lorded over me. And yeah, that began the working relationship. And then from there, I realized a couple of things. One, he's blunter than a fucking doorknob. Like,
Oh, yep.
it is next to, like, he has no tact. He has fucking no tact whatsoever.
I do enjoy that about Peppy though.
Yeah, I mean, it's a feature. It's not a bug. I think that's a good way of
Have
putting
you
it.
seen that subreddit r/Peppy roasted him good?
Yeah, it's
Oh, it's so
great.
funny.
It describes him a lot to a T, to be honest. And, like, he's blunt. He's also really ruthless with his criticism sometimes. Like, if something's shit, he'll tell you it's shit. He doesn't beat around the
Right.
bush about it. And honestly, I know some people take offense to that, but to me, that's fucking golden because getting just really unfiltered criticism that's helpful, he does it in a way that's constructive. Like, he'll tell you why it's shit and how to fix it or how he thinks it can be fixed. And having someone do that is incredibly valuable, right? Especially when you're
Yeah,
working
it's not
with
just
them.
saying like, "Oh, you suck," haha.
Yeah, especially when he's working to them. And then he's also fucking, like, I'm not sure he's human. I suspect he may be some kind of silicon-based life form or something because his work ethic is, it's like 90% of his life. He just constantly spends so much time on his projects and so much time on his craft. And he's always trying to code things better and fix things and iterate on stuff. And when you're working with something like that, with someone like that, it means you have to also keep pace a little bit and constantly expand your skill set and stuff. So in the
Exactly.
5 years I've been working with him, I think I've picked up like a whole bunch of different knowledge. Like I've picked up a whole bunch of scripting knowledge, a whole bunch of like working with databases. I'm not like I didn't go to university for programming or anything, right? I'm just a hobbyist. Like I learned it for fun as a kid, and now it's like it's a part of my life, and I have him to thank for that. In that he was instrumental in kind of teaching me the value of that and like how to apply it, especially in terms of automation and stuff. And then there's these brief times where like he'll ruefully agree to prize off some task to me, and that is kind of like him acknowledging that I'm kind of competent enough to do that stuff. And that's like a little fuck. It's like fuck yeah, kind of like moment
Yeah,
to me.
it's like-
Yeah, it's like yeah,
A tsundere passing off.
yeah. It's kind of like
Yes.
oh, I guess you could do it because I'm doing that other stuff. But, yeah,
It's not like I want you to do it or anything.
yeah. You have those things, and it's kind of like it's really gratifying because it's gratifying in the sense that like we're friends, right? Like I bought
Right.
him, he's bought me a whole bunch of stuff, and we sent presents to each other over the years and all this shit. I was gonna meet him in person back in March, but then the coronavirus happened.
Aw.
Yeah, me and my fiance were gonna go on our 10-year anniversary to Tokyo, and I was gonna pop by the office and be like, "Hey, fuckers, it's been 10 years. I've seen none of you in person. What's
Oh,
up?"
you haven't met any of them?
No, I haven't. I'm not very good with planes, so like I haven't been to any
Oh,
of the
I
OS
see.
event stuff, and I'd kind of finally pulled my pants up and was like, all right, I'm gonna fucking get on a plane to Japan and do stuff, and then COVID hit, and well, that all fell down the fucking toilet, didn't it?
That's a shame.
Yeah.
Okay, well, once this is over, boom, ticket to Japan. Heck yeah.
Yeah. Another person that I really like working with was Flight too, because Flight's a relatively recent addition to the team, but he's so talented, man. Like a lot of the design, like pretty much all of the new design comes from Flight, and he's a very understated presence in the team, I think. And I've worked with him on medals, and it basically consists of me giving him like a single 10 or 12 word sentence to describe a metal icon. And he nails it first fucking go every time. And he's done that like over 100 times.
That's so cool.
He's so fucking good at picking stuff up like that. It's really, really hard to do because I've worked with other designers in the past. Like, on other projects that I'm involved in. I probably should have mentioned that in my introduction, actually. But I was too late for that now.
Well.
Yeah, like, it's just you can work with some designers and like they'll be really good at doing a couple of particular things and not that great at anything else. Flight's pretty much good at everything he does. Like, he's just everything he does looks cool as fuck. He totally gets the hype factor to things. So yeah, there's him, and then there's Pishy Fat, which I've already gone into length as to why Pishy Fat's great.
Of course.
Yeah. Pishy Fat's a great dude. I really like working with all the team, honestly. Like, they're all pretty great. I don't get to talk to the devs as much as I'd like because I do kind of community stuff on the side and they're all busy with their own stuff. But they're all really cool people.
That's cool. It's like a little family. That's
Yeah,
cute.
the little itty bitty family. I don't know some of them anywhere near as well as I'd like because they kind of came in like when Peppy started bringing people into the team on a paid basis more. But they're all his friends anyway. Like pretty much everyone he brings into the team is his friend. So we don't have any of the stuff that gets associated with like teams and like, you know how someone gets hired and maybe they're a bit of a cock and you don't like them much.
All right.
But you have to keep them around because they're competent. We don't get any of that. Like everyone's it's pretty chill.
Just a really great vibe.
Yeah, it's great vibes. Like sometimes we'll scream at each other over stuff and things get a little bit tense, like when mistakes happen or whatever. But it's not anything huge, and it always kind of it kind of washes away after a little bit anyway. So.
I mean, that'll happen anyways, no matter what you do.
Yeah, exactly. It's just a facet of working in a team with people. That's for sure.
And do you have like any interesting or funny stories involving the other staff members?
Oh, so many. Honestly, I think like 90% of them involve Z-Trot though. Have you had Z-Trot on here?
I have not.
No, I don't know how LinkedIn. He hasn't really done a lot of those stuff in a long time. But he was a big dude back in the day. Like when it comes to those stuff, he headed a lot of things. And if you've ever known Z-Trot, he's not the sharpest tool in the shed. And I don't mean to say that in a way that sounds like derogatory or anything, because he really does a lot of stuff, and he's skilled in a lot of things. He's great at like driving a crowd, and he's a good mapper too. He did a whole bunch of like visual stuff with storyboarding and all sorts of stuff. He's done fuckloads of stuff, but sometimes he does stuff that's really fucking stupid, usually in his personal life. And I used to be privy to that because he was like part of my friend circle a long time ago when Ventrilo was a thing. And I have so many fucking memories of Z-Trot doing incredibly funny but stupid things. Like, he chugged like 3 gallons of milk and then something happened to his push to talk key and he kind of like held it down for the whole duration. He threw up like 3 gallons of milk onto his table, and we could all hear it cascading off like a fucking waterfall. And to me, that was the pinnacle of fucking comedy. I was losing my shit. It was so funny. And then he's had like incidences where he's nearly wounded himself mortally with a turkey slicer.
What?
Yeah, I think he nearly cut off a finger by accident with a turkey slicer. He did that live on Ventrilo too. He's just, I don't know, he's a great dude. I love him to bits.
That's crazy.
I won't tolerate anyone talking shit about Z-Trot because he's such a great guy, honestly. Like, he really is. A lot of the funny stories come from him. And there's also like a miscellaneous bunch of, like, sometimes we get really dumb requests come in to support, for example, because I help out with that sometimes, and I can't really share any of them because, we don't want to make fun of people that are coming in for help or anything. But some of them are kind of just like, okay.
Do you have any that you can like mention, funny ones?
I don't think I can. I'd have to look them up, but it's
fair enough.
It's the kind of stuff you'd assume of, like, it's like someone that maybe not the best with computers, that kind of thing. Like when they come in,
my account got deleted. I don't know what the password is.
Yeah, something like that, or things like they'll send us their password, like lists of their passwords and stuff that they've used for other things, and it's just like, no, dude, you don't need to do that. Never send your password to any sort of support ever. It's like, I know you're trying to help and make it really easy for this, but we don't need your password. They're like, oh,
that's funny.
Yeah, that happens a lot, by the way, as well. Like, you'd be surprised how much that happens. Yeah.
So like, granted, you never actually do it, but if you wanted to,
you could
get into people's stuff.
You could really easily, and there's a lot of expectation of trust with the people that do support stuff because of that. It's a really big deal. Like, because you violate that trust once, like if something happens and you do get a shonky person doing support stuff, and they come in and they use the information they have access to do stuff like that, then It's kind of like what happened with Twitter and how like one of their support things got jacked or they paid someone off.
Right, that happened recently.
Yeah, where all those Bitcoin scams. Like people are gonna look at Twitter support now and be like, dude, what the fuck? Like I don't trust these guys anymore. I don't trust them. Like,
no, definitely.
Fuck no. Like I went and changed all my passwords and everything after that. I don't know how much they got compromised. It's just like all it takes is to happen once, and so far it's never happened to us, and I hope it never does. But yeah.
Peppy still never sent back my Bitcoin.
Oh. That's not very good.
I'll send a support email.
And can I have my Bitcoin back, please?
Please.
Oh, dude, they ran off with like
give you
100
so
grand.
much. Oh yeah, it was like 116, 18.
The thing that gets me with that is like, cryptocurrency stuff's not easy. Like, even with the stuff that the sites that make it easy nowadays, like, you have to have some technical knowledge.
No, I heard like you have to be like for the people who like are into cryptocurrency, like they always tout it, like, oh, I'm so much more intelligent because I know, like, oh, you have physical money, but then they went over and sent 100 grand in like less than 30 minutes.
They fell for a RuneScape money doubling scam on Twitter. It's like, that's the kind of shit you do when you're 7 years old. And you do it once in your life. Like, everyone gets one time where they get fucked over like that in their life and it never happens to them again. And you did that with like $10,000 worth of real Bitcoin. It's like, oh my god, dude. I don't get it.
No, I really don't.
But yeah, I guess that's that topic.
Right. Alright, so then continuing from that. So being in the games is like, you know, basically the beginning again. What are like some of the ways you've seen the community itself grow and change?
I mentioned this before with the whole fact that everything's gotten bigger, but that's definitely the biggest thing, I think. Is that everything's gotten spread out and the small world vibes are gone, and a lot of the really...
That's so much as a family.
Yeah. A lot of the real big kicker for me is that the whole fire and fury, like, I grew up in that. That was my OS experience of really strong coloured personalities, like, all fighting one another and all being really violently colourful and explosive, and there was always some drama going on. It was like 2 weeks would pass and someone would piss someone else off. It was kind of great. I miss that a little bit. Like, I know it sounds a bit stupid for a moderator to miss the drama, but I do. Because it was...
Fair.
People get along too well nowadays, and the systems have progressed to a point where it becomes very impersonal. You kind of feel like you're dealing with robots a little bit sometimes.
Yeah, I get that.
Yeah, like, I kind of like... That's why, like, people will see me spar with Monstrata and Sotarks on Twitter and stuff, and it's just like... I may seem pissed, and I am a little bit, but I'm also not... Well, maybe I am at Sotarks, but not so much at Monstrata. Yeah, now that I think about it. It's a bit different.
Fair enough.
It's a bit different. But, like, more Monstratas are okay. I guess Sotarks is good sometimes. Like, I don't dislike everything he does, but he does some dumb shit sometimes that really, really annoys me. Like his recent stint with the Beatmap nominator stuff and like apparently giving people 3 mods to pass the thing. I don't know if that's a joke. He jokes about so many things.
I thought that was a joke. I kind of wanted to test it, but then I realized that it would probably get me blacklisted.
No,
like, I didn't want to like actually do it, but I just want to see if he'd actually send anything. But I just didn't mess with it.
If he did, honestly, I don't think we'd be able to tell because like.
Right.
Monstrata's mentioned this too, but like it's really easy to bypass those kind of things if you just get people to ghost mod for you. We've had problems with it before. It's not anything that can really be fixed either. But I also kind of don't think he'd spend all the effort to get people in just out of spite like that. I think he just kind of wanted to send off a bit of a fuck you tweet because he was pissed off over something. Which I respect that, because I've done that a whole bunch of times too. But like sometimes his fuck off tweets cause me work. That's a bit of a difference there between the two.
Yeah, that's fair.
Yeah. But, yeah.
What about the whole Donald Trump name thing?
Yeah, that was another thing. It was kind of just like, he took, like, for the longest time we looked at that and been like, oh, it's not hurting anyone, we just won't do anything about it. But then he changed to Donald Trump, and I heard that he was threatening to have Donald Trump added to all of his tags, and he has like 100 beat maps or something, and then it would cause this horrible thing where, like, people would search up Donald Trump and he'd appear in search engine lists, and it was going to cause a whole bunch of fucking
unnecessary work.
Yeah, basically. He was going to start a fire that wasn't the kind of fire that I felt that I like. It was kind of just the annoying fire. It's the tee-hee giggles.
The black smoke.
Yeah. Let's call it that. It's not the great kind.
Well, then would you say like the community itself then had like kind of changed for the better, or like I don't know, you said you miss like the older aspect of it, but
I think in
what do you think
some
about?
ways it has. I don't think it's changed that much. The social sphere broadening thing, us having less control over that as well. I don't know if that's for the better. Sometimes I wish we had more control, but of course I'm saying that from a position where like I'd like to exercise that control.
No, definitely.
Yeah, and you know, people have every right to not really want me to have a say in what kind of stuff they can say and do in their communities, and that's perfectly fine as well. But like I miss that we have less control over that. I think it's the OS game subreddit is probably the biggest example of that. Like I don't really like how that's turned out at all. I
I
think
pop in on it occasionally just to see like the scores that some of people set, but I'm not like too much into the Reddit on that.
yeah, there's a big community associated with it, and the community's it's not really moderated very well. It's kind of just in some ways I feel like it's a bit of a gateway for people to do kind of shonky things because we see a lot of people involved in Reddit that are like restricted or openly cheat or kind of do things like that, and it's a little bit of a gateway for it. And the moderators don't do a particularly fantastic job of making that not happen, but they try. I don't want to make it out like they don't try, but
Okay.
it's just there's a whole bunch of communities anchored to the Reddit that use it for score posts, and like the OS report subreddit existing is another thing that has a lot of communities attached to it. You have people there that are hunting cheaters, and then you have cheater communities there that are trying to like put false ones in to evade detection and basically confound things. It's all sorts of stuff that we've never.
That's annoying.
Yeah, like stuff like that we never had to deal with before when it was very small, and we have to deal with that now. It's a bit of a pain in the ass, to be honest.
Oh, I'm sure.
Yeah, but I think overall, I think things have changed for the better.
That's cool then. Yeah. With it being big, it's still like, all the different communities and stuff are really cool.
Yeah.
You find your little sub community and boom, you stick with it.
Yeah. But like nowadays, you run the risk of I joined the OS game subreddit for a little bit. The OS game subreddit Discord for a little bit, and it was kind of fun. And like I like shit posting as well. And there was a lot of shit posting going on in there. And then kind of like a whole bunch of dudes started coming and talking about like drug use and like DMT and stimulants and stuff. And I'm like, bro, what the fuck? Like when did this kind of stuff get attached? Yeah, and it was like
OS2 is known for its drug uses.
Oh yeah, but it's just like if you were a new player and like you use Reddit a lot and you joined just a subreddit community
right.
like that, you came in and you saw that kind of chat happening in a big Discord like that, you'd think, oh shit, is this kind of what the community's like? You know?
No, exactly.
Yeah, it's why the moderators of spaces like that, they generally do a good job. Like I know there's a whole bunch of really big OS Discords, but some of them, like the subreddit Discord, aren't moderated so well, and maybe it's because it's hard to when they're so big like that. Like if a mod's not online, they can't slap people in the ass for talking in general chat about like drugs or whatever. But
Right.
that impression has stayed with me for a long time, and I think that's probably the best example of the kind of struggles that we have with that.
Speaking of that, join the Mapcast Discord server. Hey.
Oh yeah, sure thing. Toss me a link. I'll stay in there.
Hey, sure.
I'm in like 30 OS servers already. Another one won't hurt.
Fair enough. And then I guess like more into the community. What has been like your favorite or like thing about the community?
Favorite thing is the number of talented creators by far, dude. Like there's just so many of them. Like there's mappers, there's people that draw. Like I run the fan art contest as well. I should have touched on that in my introduction
right.
too. Yeah, like I'm pretty much responsible for all of those art contests and shit. I have been for a long time now, but I love those and I love seeing that. I love seeing people like get their work recognized by the OS community. It gives me it really gratifies the work that I do when I'm able to kind of like lift people up like that and give them the exposure that they deserve, because I know it's so hard for artists sometimes to get that kind of exposure. Like musicians, people that draw, mappers too.
No, exactly.
Like we had Hypersight became an elite mapper yesterday, and I got to write the tweet for that.
Oh, I saw that.
Yeah.
That was so nice.
It's just
Congrats to Hypersite.
yeah, congrats, dude. He really earned it. But being able to do that and being able to kind of use that privilege that I've got to be able to lift people up like that and have their work seen, that's probably my favorite thing. I love doing that. I will always love doing that. Like I do it with community contributor. I do it with all sorts of stuff. I try and fund some tournaments sometimes too. Like I'm probably gonna drop Vinxus a big donation for Corsace in a little bit, because I hear he's looking for donations for that as well.
Is that how you say it? Corsace? I've been saying Corsace.
Corsace, I don't know. Both maybe. I'm just gonna say Corsairs
fair.
because Corsace. Is that
Yeah.
really how you say it?
That's what I thought,
Oh, let me tweet at it.
and I'm probably dumb.
Hey,
You're tweeting right now.
Vinxus, how do you say Corsairs? There you go. I'll find out.
Let me know how that turns out.
We'll do. But yeah, that's my favorite thing for sure. It's the uplifting. Love that.
And so then on the opposite of that, what is your least favorite thing about the community?
This one's harder to talk about a little bit. When we lose people, and like when we lose people, as in like they die, I hate that.
Oh.
I hate that so much. We've had like people like 11T, Danzai, the Lua, Nanashi Ray. There's so many of them, and like part of the whole position that we're in is that we hear about it eventually. And it's a little bit like, I don't want to come across as being self-centered here or anything, but whenever we hear instances like that, I kind of sit down and I wonder, is there more I could have done with the trust and the stuff that I've got to, you know, brighten their lives up a little bit? Like, is there something I could have done to stop that or turn it around, you know? I always kind of wonder, like, I probably couldn't have done anything to change it in the end, but I still wish I could have done something, you know? Like, maybe I could have just done that one little thing. Like, I had this whole rapport with the Lua. Like, he used to come in to support and he'd ask for like his account to get scrambled like maybe twice a month. Sometimes like we'd scramble people's passwords for them if they wanted to quit and stuff like that. And like I would handle those requests because the support reps would get tired of doing it for Lua all the time, but I'd do it with him. And
Right.
I used to threaten him that like if he keeps doing it, I'm gonna fucking sign him up for a subscription of Horse Porn Weekly. And that sounds ridiculous, but like that's the kind of, oh my god, I turned into a duck there for a second. that's the kind of rapport I had with Lua, and he knew it was me. Like he knew 100% it was me because I was in Venture servers with him and everything back in the day, and I used to do that, and he used to be like, fuck, I think it's time for my subscription of Horse Porn Weekly again. And I'd be like, bro, and you want me to scramble your account again? And he's just like, yeah. And I'm like, oh, all right, well, I'll sign you up for issue 3 then. And we had that kind of rapport going on, and then for a long time it kind of stopped, and I thought, oh, maybe he's gotten over it and stuff. And then a couple of months later, the news came in, and I'm like, oh, so that's why he stopped.
Oh, that's a shame.
Yeah. There's just little stuff like that. It's kind of like why I made like the medal for 11T's map and all that stuff. And I wonder if maybe if I'd done that a little sooner. I don't know the circumstances surrounding his death, but or anything like that. Like I'm not making predilections here as to what it was or anything, but I just kind of wonder that maybe could have made his life a little bit brighter before they lost it. I don't know. It's hard to really say, but I'm sure you can get what I mean. Yeah.
No, I completely understand.
Yeah.
It's just one of those things that you just gotta deal with.
Yeah, like we heard that I think Ben or Seiko or whoever it was, a big cheater, like he'd been a problem for us for like years. Like I heard that he died or something, and I remember posting in the subreddit about it and people being surprised that I wasn't celebrating his death, and it's just like, bro, why would I celebrate his death? Like I know he caused me problems at work, but like, man, no one deserves to go out like that. You know what I mean? Like I heard he had I don't know.
You hated the guy.
Yeah, like because he cheats on the game. It's like, no, dude, I don't hate anyone that cheats on the game. Like I used to cheat on games when I was young too. It's how I learned to program. Like I used to cheat on Neopets and stuff. I used to do all that kind of stuff. It's just the hearing that he had like. Supposedly, I don't know if any of this is true, but he had like drug abuse problems or something, and they eventually got the better of him, as they so often do. And just hearing that was just like, man, that fucking sucks. Like, no one deserves to go out like that, you know? Like, fuck. It's just like, as we get bigger and the community gets older, and it's kind of just, I kind of sit here and I'm like, who's next, you know? Like, I think about that sometimes.
It's like one of those things that like looms in your mind.
Yeah, it's always like, you know, when's someone that I know gonna pop off again, and I'll have to relive the Lewis stuff all over again. Except like extra this time. I don't know. It's just that's my least favorite thing, to be honest. I really hate
just
that.
gotta keep looking forward.
Yeah. I mean, that's what I do. It's just a thing. That's the least favorite thing by far. But yeah.
Right. And then with going forward with that, like, then what would you like to see changed in the community going forward?
I'd love to bring the small world thing back if we could somehow. I know Locktab's experimenting at the moment with he's repurposed a big OS community server. I think it has like, I don't know, like 10 or 11,000 people in it, and he's trying to repurpose that as kind of like a, Jesus Christ, multi-purpose OS thing. And I've spoken with Peppy a bit about like maybe seeing if we can get full Discord integration in and having like an official OS server, but it's a lot of work to do to the level that he wants it if we're doing it official, and it's mostly work that only he can do, as in like Peppy can do.
Right.
So it's a really, really long term, like maybe post laser kind of deal. I'd love to try and just be able to have a distinctive fold into these big networks, because we have a presence on Twitter, for example, and that's good. And you know, we have like there's people on the OS team that are involved in the subreddit that help as well. Like Toy, I think, is a mod on the subreddit, and he does stuff with us in the OS team sometimes. So, but I'd just love to close that gap and be able to have a proper official space for people on Discord to come into the OS community with.
That'd be really cool.
Yeah, it's a big important thing. I'd also love to do more stuff with the OS Live Twitch channel and kind of like feature streamers and maybe do what like Paladins and other games do, where they like invite people in to cast on the OS Live channel maybe.
Oh, I see.
Yeah, like I want to see the coffee hours come back as well. I know there's been talk between like Sartan and a couple of other people that maybe want to start doing the coffee hours again.
Hey, we need more OSU podcasts.
We do, yeah. And there's a certain someone that runs a particular mapping relating podcast that I'm keeping my eye on.
Another one? Dang it.
Yeah, you can see what I'm getting at. I'd like to.
No, I get it. Yeah.
I'd like to promote people that do stuff like that, like 2127 as well, and other people that make mapping related content. And we have a whole bunch of YouTubers now that get like 100k views on their videos and stuff as well.
Right.
I'd love to be able to share that and open that up with people, you know, because I think it's really cool that we have people making content like that. We need to give them a bit more visibility, you know.
No, I 100% agree.
Yeah.
Just more content it just helps. It makes the community feel a lot closer as well.
It's good, yeah. And it gives people incentive to start their own stuff too.
Right, and then it helps build other people.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, I would probably not be here if it wasn't for like other OSU contents people have made, like, you know, Pishy Fat.
Yeah, what inspired you to
videos.
Start this, by the way? Was it him? Was it Pishy Fat, or did you just get the idea?
It wasn't exactly Pishy Fat, but I wanted to make like OSU related content, and I think like, you know, there's so many channels about like gameplay and like playing and like all the stuff you can do with OSU. So I wanted to have like more, cause you know, since Pishy Fat stopped making, I think he said he wants to come back, which would be really cool. But I just wanted like more mapping related stuff.
More mapping related. So yeah, okay. So you kind of wanted to fill that niche. Yeah.
Yeah, and I've also been listening to so many podcasts, and like, I want my own podcast.
Yeah, see, that's great. So like in the future, someone will listen to this and be like, "Oh shit, I want to do something like this," you know. And it kind of like it keeps the fire going.
No, exactly.
Yeah, it's like the torch gets passed on, and people start like making content to fill in for other people that aren't doing it anymore. They carry on the legacy. And I think legacy is a big part of the OS community, and that's what I really want to see continue.
Agree. Like if someone moves on, then there will always be someone else to just pick it back up.
Yeah, like
and make it, you know, something different, or just continue it.
Yeah, a good example for that would be the Aspire contest, because I know there's a bit of like controversy surrounding them at the moment. Well, there's always been controversy surrounding them, but yeah, I don't run them anymore. Like I ran the first 3 or 4, I think it was, but I passed those on to Mo to handle, and he's trying his best with this new format, and I think it's going to be pretty cool. But you know, there's always teething issues with stuff like that, right?
No, exactly.
Yeah, so it takes
growing pains.
Yeah, exactly. It's growing pains. It takes a while to hit your stride with that kind of stuff, and I think that's exactly the case with this. But the most important thing to me is that the legacy carries on.
Right.
So that's by far the most important thing. But yeah, so I want to. That's my answer to this question, is that I'd like to see the legacy continue.
That's 100% agree. And so, because we've been talking a bunch about, like, you know, dev work and stuff like that, but you're also part of the GMT.
I am. I have been for a long time.
So, as someone who's, like, been a part of that, like, what are, like, I'm sure you've had, like, a bunch of unique counters and, like, players with different people and stuff like that. So, what are, like, some of the, I say the dumbest, but, like, the dumbest or, like, most interesting encounters you've had working on that?
Oh, man. I get approached a lot, and a really common theme that people do, and I don't know whether it's out of like nerves though, honestly, the fact that anyone gets nervous speaking to me is hilarious. I don't fathom that in the slightest. But I get a common thing where people, like, they ask me a question if they can ask me a question. Like, can I ask you a question? They come up to me and it's like the first thing they say, and I'm like, bro, you're already asking me a question. Like,
Right.
And you think, oh yeah, it's a little bit teehee, yeah. And then it happens like 3 to 6 times a week, every week, and you're like,
Oh, I'm sure that gets a little bit.
yeah. I'm like, why is this still happening? Usually people don't do it after the first time, but it's just I had no idea it was that common. That's my interesting thing. Another one that I have is I've had so many instances of people that like they'll get done for having an inappropriate avatar. Like they'll have like an Ahegao avatar or some hentai avatar or something,
Right.
and they'll come in with like a 500-word essay about why it's okay because there's nothing visible in it. And one, they assume that nobody in the GMT has ever read smut before. Like, hello, we live on the internet. This is not surprising to anyone.
Wait. Is a Hegao pictures not allowed?
No.
Oh, I didn't know that.
You really? You
Interesting.
didn't?
I didn't know that.
No, they're removed on principle. I think 90% of all avatar removals are Hegao ones.
I see.
And the other like 9% is hentai, and then there's 1% actual other crap.
That's so funny.
Yeah, it's so much of it, and it's always the same fucking pictures. Oh my god.
The main one is like on the hoodies.
Yeah, like the big face one on one of those hoodies that like takes up the chest or something.
Yeah.
Yeah, like I've seen that picture thousands of times, and I shit you not, it's been that many times.
Oh, that's so funny. I'm sorry.
Oh, dude, it's nuts. And I'm not even a particularly active moderator when it comes to that stuff. So many other people in the GMT handle all that, and they see it so much more often than I do.
Oh, I'm sure the GMT see a bunch of just crazy stuff.
They do, yeah. We have a logging channel we use where we see all the removals and stuff, and well, yeah, we have to spoil the target, and then occasionally, sometimes we'll have to remove stuff that's really above the pale because we don't want to get our fucking internal server like canned by Discord for breaking terms of service. This is some really gross shit.
Really?
Yeah.
Dang.
Some people put some really fucking disgusting shit as their avatar sometimes. Yeah.
That's crazy. Yeah, people are like, y'all, a rhythm game for kids.
Rhythm game for kids, I'm gonna
put some gore or something.
Yeah, dude, the gore, it's like gore or shit related stuff. I don't know what it is about people with shit, man. I don't get it. It's
It
just
is a terrible niche.
I don't want to shame people for like
It's horrifying.
kinks or whatever, but why is it always shit? Like I don't get it. Like all of the really gross ones that I remember always involve that. It's just I don't know. And it's nasty. That's
I just want to know like what compels someone to put a picture like that as their avatar.
I don't know, but like we'll remove it and then they'll put it back. And it's like, man, like, were we not clear? You got silence for 2 days about this. You're just gonna put it back, and it's like, oh, I don't see what's wrong with it. It's like, oh, well, you know. Oh, then you get
king shaming.
You're kick. I actually had someone accuse us of that once.
No way.
Yeah, like they put up something with some avatar of a guy's bulge or something, like I think it was Ricardo Milos or something. They put up a picture of his bulge, and it's just kind of like we'd remove it if it was a chick too, like if it was that kind of explicit display from like a woman or whatever else, we'd do it too. But then he comes on with like this 600-word essay accusing us of being homophobes, and I'm like, no, dude, that's not it. This is an all ages game, brother. It's nothing to do with that.
You completely missed the mark on that one.
Yeah, like, oh man, that's the wrong thing to go for. That's for sure.
That's so funny. I'm sorry. I'm sure it's really annoying, but it's also just so funny.
Yeah. One other thing that happens like every day. I think I've had it like 3 times today already as well. Is we'll have people that get, they'll get restricted for cheating or for multi-accounting or for being dicks in chat. And then they'll claim it was their brother. It's always the brother. It's never sisters. It's never cousins. It's just brothers. It's like 99% of all the fences, if you listen to people that send in stuff to support, it's always their fucking brothers.
It was my mom's friend's neighbor's dog. I swear, they installed the software without me knowing.
It's honestly more believable. Like, I would believe someone if they said, oh yeah, my third cousin came over for like Ramadan or something, right? And like played on my account. I'd believe that, because it's not the fucking brother. I don't know. It's just, I don't know why it's always brothers, man.
Oh, yeah. I think it's just, do people actually think that will work sometimes?
They must do. I don't know. I mean, I never appealed any of my cheating stuff when I got banned for like Neopet shit back in the day, because I don't think you could. mainly. I don't think it was just not a thing that was
That's how
entertaining.
you fix it. You just don't have requests. You can't. You're banned. Done.
Oh no, I remember
You no
now.
repeals.
When I was like 9 or 11, I think I used to play Counter Strike Source a lot, and I downloaded a free spin bot. Like, you ever play Counter Strike Source?
I play a little bit.
Yeah. Did you ever see any of those cheaters back in the day where they like span around like a fucking like typhoon and like headshot everyone? Were you ever unlucky enough to
Yeah.
land up? Yeah, I downloaded one of those, and I was like 11-year-old fucking shitler. I downloaded one of those and I ran it for a while, and my account got vac banned, as it should, because I was being fucking retarded.
Right.
And me and my
No, of
infinite
course.
wisdom decided I'd post on their thing. Oh yeah, my brother did it. Can you unban? And I'm like, now this is my penance. Now I have to deal with this. I have to deal with 11-year-old me every day.
That's karma right
Yeah,
there.
it's literally fucking karma. Oh Christ!
Oh, that's so.
Even I did it
so
too.
We've been talking about funny stuff, but like, have you ever like, do you want to talk about any like controversies or hard decisions you've had to make as a GMT, or like in that whole scene?
Oh, dude, I've got so many hard decisions. A lot of the time, the most painful ones, I think, or the controversies. There was this big map called Evans back in the day. I don't think anyone remembers it now, but it was kind of like it was a map made by a Chinese mapper, and back at the time, there was these really kind of like lingering inflammation, I'm going to call it. There was a bit of racial tension back in the day between the various mapping things. It doesn't exist nowadays. It's just completely stopped. Thank God. It was really bad. But like, you'd have like Chinese mappers claiming that they were being like, their maps would get some of them, not all of them, of course, because I don't want to generalize here, but some of them would take criticism on their map as an attack on their race, because the Chinese mapping scene at the time had a particularly like really distinctive style of mapping, and it wasn't really widely accepted. This was also one of the reasons why why I'm so glad that things aren't like that anymore, because like you used to get stuff like this crop up when people were choosing what was allowed and what wasn't like that. And it was because it was so subjective. It was almost impossible to do this fairly, and it wasn't done fairly. Like that's why these kind of tensions come up when you don't have specific things like this. Anyway, we had a situation where that happened with a map called Evans, and I was at the front because I usually was back then in these kind of things, because I was a really hard-assed. Like, really, really, really hard ass. I think I got into the BAT originally because I was so fucking... I was a slider Nazi back in the day. I used to fucking mod people's sliders and stuff. I was very adamant that I was right about everything. And in this one particular instance, that this kind of mapping, the Chinese style kind of mapping came in, and it wasn't congruent with what I or the rest of the bat saw. And we thought, okay, this isn't allowed. We're gonna have to stop this from getting ranked, or we're gonna have to unrank it. Can't remember which. But that started so much drama for like 3 weeks that it was just non-stop. I think it was like 4 hours a day I was online responding to people on forum threads and like in-game chat and stuff like that. And oh man, it was nasty. And I don't honestly remember. I don't remember the outcome of it, but I think the map got stopped for a while and then ended up back in after some changes. And I look back on that now, and it's kind of like I use that as a model of like what not to do in the future. Because I had such a bad experience with that, and being like essentially the person required to enforce these standards and stuff. It really soured me on the whole idea. And that is what I take away the most. The second most thing is that sometimes I've had to knife people. I know that sounds like really bad, but sometimes people will get into a position in the community, like in the BAT stuff, and they don't do the right thing. Or they start to like favor their friends, and it starts to become like it poses a cycle that I've seen in other communities that I've been a part of, and it causes like what I call a nepotism loop, where only people's friends start getting added to stuff. And I've had a couple of instances in my time in OS where I've had to basically knife people that are starting to start that kind of stuff. And it's a difficult thing to do, because they've only gotten into that position in the first place because they've contributed heaps. But sometimes you have to divest all of that contribution that they've done and look at what they're starting to do and being like, no, that's not okay. We can't allow that. And it's been friends too. Like, I've had to do it to friends, and for a while I think people kind of viewed me as a bit of a snake for it, but it's like I'm doing it because like I really, really love this community, and I've spent so much time on it that I can't risk being loose on this particular thing this once. And so I've had to throw people under the bus a few times and do all sorts of really shonky political shit that I'm not proud of. honestly. And in some way, I'm glad that I don't have to do that much anymore. But that's probably, among that and the mapping quality stuff that I mentioned before, that are probably the hardest decisions that I've had to make on this front.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
Yeah. It just comes with the position, I guess.
It does, but I don't know how I really ended up in that position. I kind of just do stuff, and it sort of falls into my lap a little bit. I don't mean to come across as kind of like, oh yeah, just so talented, it happens naturally. But it's when you're really engaged in a community, like people will drop stuff at your lap. Like I do it to Pishy all the time because I know he does stuff. Like I used to time the featured artist maps, and I wasn't very good at it. So I'm like, Pishy, can you do this? And he's like, yeah, sure, I'll do this. And now he times all of them. That kind of stuff. And when you do that over a long enough period of time, people start accumulating these portfolios of stuff that they do. But yeah.
How did you like become like getting to like becoming a GMT, like from dev? Like were you you went from dev to also be a GMT, or?
I was a BAT the whole time, and
Okay.
the BAT, I only did my modding requirements as a BAT because you used to have activity requirements back then. Like we had to mod, like I think it was like 100 Cadoses worth of maps a month, which was like 50.
Okay.
It's 50, 30 to 40, sometimes more if you posted multiple and things. And I did that for 2 months, and I was bored fucking shitless at the end of it. Like mandatory modding for things like it's just I had to go through a list of maps for songs that I didn't care about, check out maps that I didn't care about, and then give feedback to people that probably weren't going to stay. Most of them didn't. Oh, pardon me. Most of them did stay. So I was essentially just kind of like pissing my time into the wind, and I didn't like that very much. So I started doing stuff with the team, like managing people and kind of like, you know, making, I don't know, I inserted my opinion a lot into places, even when people didn't necessarily ask for it, which I'm sure was annoying at the time, but it turns out people listened to me a little bit, and then over time it kind of collected into a point where no one was really noticing or caring that I wasn't meeting modding requirements anymore because I was just helping with other stuff.
Right.
And then from there, I think my responsibilities ended up diverging so much that I think I just asked, or I either asked or I added myself to the GMT, I don't remember. I think I asked, and I think Sinistro moved me across. But,
just made yourself a GMT.
Yeah, because the BAT and the GMT used to be basically the same thing.
Okay.
They denote modding focus. So like the BAT were orange or orange or red, whichever you call it. It's both for some people. And the GMT were green, and you'd have green BAT or green GMT, and they would essentially be BAT and held to the same requirements, but they had a modding focus, and they could like do more on the forums and stuff.
Oh, I see.
That was the only difference. But yeah, at some point I moved across, and I don't remember when, but it happened. And then I've stayed there ever since. But I don't do a whole lot of moderation. I leave that to the big guys. I've made them a whole bunch of stuff. Like we have a special website we use to track that I made for them that has an IRC bot, and it tracks like all the kills and logs everything. So there's just logs of stuff.
The kills.
Yeah, we call them kills because like when someone gets silenced, it appears as silence to them. But the command we use to do it is !kill.
Really?
Yeah, in IRC.
That's so funny.
Yeah, I think Peppy called it out. I'm not sure why, but yeah, we call it. So we have a kill board that shows a board of all the moderators who do the most in a certain amount of time frame, and yeah, it's pretty much always the same people because you know you get a dedicated moderator and they stay dedicated. The GMT is full of people like that, and it's really helpful because
cool.
They do so much work. But yeah, that's how I ended up at GMT, and then from the GMT I ended up becoming a dev because I'm not moderating and I'm not modding maps, so it was kind of just a slow ascent into dev status, and I kind of just stayed there ever since.
Okay, I see. And here you are now.
Yeah, I guess it's kind of bizarre when I think about it. I don't feel like it's been 10 years. Like doing this timeline.
It's been that fast.
Yeah, I don't know. It's just kind of, it's getting to the point, a couple more years, and it'll be like I've been with OS more than I haven't in my life, you know what I mean?
Right.
Yeah, it'll be like I've known OS for longer than I've known pretty much anything else. And considering I'm a bit of a drifter as far as communities go, OS is the only real one that I've stayed down in for any length of time. Which is kind of impressive.
No, definitely, I feel that.
Yeah. Like
I've been doing the same with other communities.
Yeah, I think most people do. They kind of lurk and dip in and out, and it's just like I've developed for a few other things too. I used to develop for a game called Graal Online for the Era server for that, and then I ran a Space Station 13 server that I lead dev for for a while. and I only stayed in those communities. I think I stayed in Era for like maybe 3 or 4 years, and then I only stayed in York Station for like 2. But I've stayed with Oath for nearly like 11 now, which is insane to me. Absolute insanity.
Right.
I think I just.
mean, they say you're here forever.
Yeah, you really are. It's just you just click with it. I don't know how to describe it to people.
No, I 100% feel that.
Yeah, it's just, I don't know, there's just the right amount of weeb in this community, because I'm a bit of a weeb myself, and then in other communities, people look at weebs and they kind of squint and they're like, ooh, it's a fucking weeb, where people are like, all weebs here, so that's going for us, which I like. But,
Heck yeah.
yeah, I don't know.
I guess, wrapping up here, it's been like an hour and a half almost, so...
Holy shit.
Is there... Yeah, I didn't even notice. I've been having a lot of fun talking with you.
Oh.
Are there any, like, last things you want to mention? People to shout out right here?
Last things I want to mention. Last things to shout out. Oh, you actually wrote something about this, that's true. Okay, one last thing that I want to mention is I just want people to be fucking good to each other. That's it. Like,
100%.
I just, like, a lot of people are just kind of cocks to each other. I don't know, like, sometimes you have a bad day and it kind of spills over. Like, it can't be helped sometimes, but I see a little bit of a growing trend, especially in the mapping scene a little bit, where people are just kind of being dicks to each other just for the sake of being dicks. I don't know whether it's the pandemic making things more stressful for people in real life or what, but, like, it'd be nice if it stopped.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah, I don't think people need to be cunts to one another. I think there's plenty of that going on in the real world, and we can have our little Elysium paradise over here when we just get mildly irritated at each other over mapping standards or whatever.
Exactly, as it should be.
But I do have some shout-outs.
Go for it.
I have Sinistro, which I don't think anyone fucking knows. I don't even know if he's still connected to community or anything, but he kind of exemplified all of the even-headedness that I try to emulate what Sinistro does in a lot of things. His attitude in the early days was like, he was the pillar that people lent on, and I don't think they realized that they lent on him, but he was a real big kind of inspiration to me, and a bit of a silent mentor. I used to watch what he did, and kind of really try to mimic it as best I could, and stay the anchor. Cool. And I try and do that nowadays, but I don't know how good I am at it. But if he's listening to this, I hope he's doing well. I heard he was a dentist or something.
Oh wow!
Greece, so he was quite a qualified bloke.
Dang, that's impressive.
Yeah, he was a huge help to me early on, and yeah, another big shout out would be, funnily enough, to Vinxus, who is another one of those Pishy Fat and Clayton people that he does so much. Dude, he's a fucking featured artist. He works on PP changes. He hosts a major mapping event. He hosts a major fucking tournament, and like, I don't know, he does so much. I don't think people realize. Again, I think I've said that like 500 times in this past half an hour, but he really does so much. Like, so many of people like Vinxus just kind of carry the torch for people, and they do so much, and I don't think people ever realize it. But
did he respond to you on how to say Corsace?
Oh, did he? I think he did actually. I heard he did. He linked me the IP. He linked me the IPA. Okay, hold on. This bastard.
Here, we see now how to say it.
Oh no, I'm not clicking a fucking chart. Maybe if I just paste the thing in. Corsace, apparently.
Oh, it is Corsace? Dang it, I'm dumb. Okay.
Corsace does sound better though. I'm not gonna lie.
Yeah.
It sounds fancier.
Right.
Should get him to change the name.
I'll DM him right now.
Oh yeah.
Alright.
That's outside of that, I don't know, just the entire NAT, I guess, because people, again,
heck yeah,
I'm saying it again for like the 50th time, but they do a lot and people never see it, and I think sometimes people only focus on the bad that they do, but there's people like JB Hyperion, Noffy, Naxxus. Like, Naxxus made like the Victoria and IES, and I don't think people realize how much they do, of how much the ranking system and everything that we have today just kind of like hinges on a couple of people who've done some really amazing shit for us. And yeah, that's all I've got.
Heck yeah. Alright, so this has been episode, 22. Thank you for joining me, Ephemeral. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, it's been great, dude.
I had a lot of fun listening. It's really fun to talk to you.
Yeah, I'll be following it.
It was almost over an hour.
I hope it's not going to be a pain in the ass to edit.
No, it'll be fine. I appreciate it.
I
And,
did.
yeah, thank you for listening. As always, if you have any feedback, please do be sure to let us know. We do have a Discord if you'd like to join. The link will be in the description. Ephemeral will be there, hopefully.
Yeah.
And we also have a Patreon. And shout out to our VIP patron, Lazarus. We appreciate you. And yeah, bye.